Hey there horror fans, welcome back to Craig's Horror Channel. Now today I am coming at you with a fresh review of the new film Vicious. Directed by Brian Bertino and starring Dakota Fanning, this is a psychological supernatural horror flick that just dropped on streaming on Paramount Plus. So does this film live up to the hype? Does it bring something new to the horror table? Well, stick around because I'll break it all down. Story, performances, scares, what works and what didn't work, and whether if you should even check it out. But first, if you have followed the channel, then you know that I'm always looking for horror that pushes boundaries. So without going into any major spoilers, let's talk about the premise and the setup. Vicious centers on Polly, played by Dakota Fanning. Now she is a woman in her 30s and stuck in a rut, renting a very big house that she can't really afford, drifting through life, voicemail messages from her mum and boss. One night an elderly woman, played by the amazing Catherine Hunter, shows up at Polly's front door. She is like confused, a little bit muggled up, but she seems really harmless at first. That is until she pulls out a black box and somewhere along the way tells Polly that she must put inside the box something that she hates, something that she needs, and something that she loves. Otherwise, she is going to die tonight. What follows is a twisted rabbit hole of supernatural terror, mirrored shelves, hallucinations, self-harm elements, the box's rules being tested, there's gore, there's surreal visuals, and an atmosphere of isolation. Now, as I said, I'm going to avoid, the real heavy spoilers, but the film plays with the idea of being trapped by your own life, your own choices, whether the horror is external or internal. That premise had really great potential. So I am going straight in with the positives and what actually worked, because there is a lot to appreciate here once you look past its flaws, which we'll get on to in just a moment. Dakota Fanning's lead performance. Now she absolutely owns this film. She plays Polly, a woman teetering on the edge of collapse, with this perfect blend of fragility and defiance. Now what's impressive is how she doesn't go for not the typical scream queen approach. Instead, she delivers something quieter, more internal, more real. You see it in her body language, the subtle tremor in her hands when she first meets that mysterious old woman, the flicker of disbelief that slowly melts into panic as she realizes that this isn't a prank or a misunderstanding, and her face becomes the film's emotional teller. She makes you feel every ounce of exhaustion and guilt that her character has been living with. There's this devastating moment when Polly sits in silence, staring inside the box, whispering to herself, "I don't even know what I love anymore." That single line delivered with that hollow tone really does hit hard. It sums up how broken that she has become. It really is the kind of performance that reminds you why Fanning has been acting since childhood. She's mastered subtle horror, not the kind that screams, but the kind that suffocates you and really hits you in the feels. Another positive here is definitely the atmosphere and the production design. Now Brian Bertino, who also directed The Strangers, the original one now, and The Dark and the Wicked, once again proves that he is a master of domestic dread. The entirety film takes place mostly inside Polly's home, a cold, almost museum-like house where every shadow seems to hide something and every creak feels like a little bit of a warning. The cinematography leans heavily into isolation. You got the wide static shots that make Polly look small inside her own home. The snowstorm outside acts as both a metaphor and a trap. The worlds beyond her walls feels unreachable, which kind of like seals her fate in the movie. And there is also almost like a painterly approach to the lighting. You got muted blues, faint yellows, and stark whites. I mean, you'll notice the reflections and the mirrors are used constantly throughout this movie, sometimes showing Polly's distorted reflection, sometimes not showing her at all. It gives the whole film a haunting duality. You're never sure what's real and what's just going on inside Polly's mind. Even the set decoration tells a story. I mean, you've got those empty wine glasses, you've got the dirty cutlery, the scattered mail, a dying plant. Small hints that this woman's life has slowly been rotting from the inside. Another positive is the gory scenes and the imagery and the visceral horror. Because while this film isn't a constant bloodbath, when it does go for it, it really does commit. The horror is psychological at first, but when it turns physical, it's disturbing on a gut level. Now, without spoiling specifics here, there are a few scenes that will really test any horror fan in flinching or not, because there's one that involves a mirror and another involving what Polly decides to put inside the box. The practical effects are brutally realistic, the kind of quick, almost surgical violence that makes you gasp rather than cheer. There's also a brilliant use of the sound combined with the gory moments. I mean, there is like the crunch of bones, the squelch of something organic being moved. Layered under the storm outside, you feel the pain because the soundscape does not let you escape it. And Bertino's restraint here makes the few moments of violence more impactful. When it happens and it really matters. It's not just violence for shock, it's violence as revelation. The film is mixed in such a way that silence becomes its own kind of terror. You will hear the faint knocking that might be coming from the box or the walls. You've also got the wind and the storm outside, which almost feels and sounds like that is human. The score by Tom Schrader is minimalistic, low-droned strings that rise and fade like breath, but it's timid so precisely that it keeps you in a constant state of tension. One of my favourite touches is how the film changes the soundscape depending on Polly's mental state. When she's calm, you hear the soft hum of the fridge or the radiator, just normal domestic sounds, but as her fear escalates, those sounds distort, like the hum becomes a vibration, the ticking clock turns into a heartbeat, her own breathing becomes part of the score, and I just thought that was so clever. And by the final act, it is hard to tell what's environmental and what's supernatural, but that is just all the positives. Now we're going to go into the mix and a little bit of negatives now, because now that I've praised what Vicious has done right, let's be real, this movie isn't perfect. For every brilliant moment of dread, there's another that leaves you scratching your head, wondering, wait, what? What are the actual rules here from this box? So starting off of one of the negatives is, what are the rules of the box? I mean, it was a brilliant setup, but it seemed to be a bit of a weak payoff. The entire film revolves around this mysterious black box, the old woman's warning that Polly must place 3 things inside. Something she hates, something she needs, and something she loves. That setup is genius. I mean, it instantly gives the story a psychological framework. It's kind of like a cursed object morality test, but the film never really tells us what the box actually does or why those specific emotional tokens matter. We never learn, is the box supernatural? Is it occult? Is it alien? Is it a manifestation of Polly's guilt? And we also never find out what happens to the objects once they're inside. And we never also find out why do these rules matter so specifically? Why those 3 emotions? Why not one? The script gives fragments. The old woman mutters that the box judges what you offer and that if you lie to it, it will know, but that's it. There's no origin story, no clear explanation of where the frig did this box come from, who had it first. And that's fine if the mystery leads to emotional payoff, like in The Babadook or in It Follows, where the horror's ambiguity mirrors the protagonist's trauma. But in Vicious, it feels more like the filmmakers just forgot to finish explaining their own idea. It's as if the film wants to be both a supernatural curse movie, but also a metaphorical character study, but it never really commits fully to either. So instead of feeling intrigued, you end up confused. The box starts off terrifying and ends up feeling like a plot device rather than a real threat. If the movie had just given us maybe one scene, a flashback or a legend or a previous victim, just something, it could have grounded everything. Without that anchor, the story kind of just floats around in its own fog. The movie keeps teasing big ideas and then backing away from them, almost afraid to take a stance. I mean, that's what makes it frustrating. There is so much there to unpack. You got guilt, grief, the cost of emotional numbness, the loss of Polly's dad, yet the script skims the surface. And just one last thing on the negatives is the pacing and the escalation issues. I mean, Vicious starts incredibly strong. The first act is slow, eerie, intimate. It builds tension perfectly. The moment when the old woman appears at the front door, it is classic horror and the atmosphere is suffocating. But I did find that the second act did drag a little bit. We spent a long stretch watching Polly wander around her house, reacting to noises, debating what to put in the box. The tension doesn't build, it kind of just does a bit of a loop every so often. And then when the third act hits, the movie slams the pedal down so fast it feels like a different film entirely. The problem with this movie is that it isn't bad, it's just that it's almost great. It's a film packed with brilliant ingredients, atmosphere, performance, symbolism, but it never decides which recipe it wants to follow. So here is where I land personally. I found this film, Vicious, to be an intriguing watch. I liked the concept, I liked Fanning's performance, and I appreciate the mood and the style, but I was left unsatisfied by the end. I wanted a bit more of a payoff. I was slightly confused by the ending as well. I mean, the horror was there, but the meaning or coherence behind the horror felt a little bit thin. Given all of that though, guys, I am actually going to give this movie a rating of 6.5 out of 10. It's worth a watch for fans of psychological horror and those who appreciate, the creeping dread rather than jump scare only. But it's not one of the standout horror films of 2025 in my opinion anyway. Would I recommend this movie? Yes. I would suggest maybe watching it on a very good sound system though, and also set aside your expectations for full clarity and go in ready to be unsettled rather than fully enlightened. If you want horror with tight logic and a clear why, you may feel a little bit let down with this movie. Alright then guys, well that is my review of Vicious 2025. If you've seen this movie, drop a comment below and let me know what you thought of that black box twist and whether if the ambiguity worked for you or not. And if you haven't seen it yet, consider giving it a go guys, especially on a rainy night with good surround sound or headphones. If you enjoyed today's review, hit that like button, subscribe, ring that notification bell, and share with your horror-loved friends. I've got more reviews, deep dives, breakdowns coming up and you will not want to miss any of it. Okay then guys, thank you all for watching today. I'll see you all in my next video.
Creep in the dead of night.